Welcome to the Norris Group Real Estate Podcast, a show committed to bringing you insights from thought leaders shaping the real estate industry. In each episode, we'll dive into conversations with industry experts and local insiders, all aimed at helping you thrive in an ever-changing real estate market, continuing the legacy that Bruce Norris created, sharing valuable knowledge, and empowering you on your real estate journey. Whether you're a seasoned pro or a newcomer, this is your go-to source for insider tips, market trends, and success strategies. Here's your host, Craig Evans.
Welcome back, and thank you for tuning in for part 2 of our interview with Kaaren Hall, CEO of uDirect IRA Services. Hope you enjoy.
Can anyone set up an IRA?
Right. Yeah, you can. I mean, the barrier to entry to a self-directed IRA is to have earned income. But, when you were just talking, you remind me of something like when I was younger, that's how I felt the same way. Like, how could I ever do this? And then you just one step at a time, take little tiny leaps of faith. And I think the first thing I did, I just want to throw out there is I got a real estate license and really learned about this asset class. And then little by little worked my way into it. So, just because you can't do it now doesn't mean you can't learn and grow and change and expand, because that's what we do as humans, and you'll be able to do all those things. So just want to offer some encouragement.
Compared to traditional IRAs, whether it's Roth, any simple IRAs, SEPs, anything, what do you see as the biggest benefit of a self-directed IRA?
Expanding the choice of asset classes. We see the stock market take a dive, and we see all asset classes take a dive. Let's be fair. They all take a dive, but it offers you more diversity. So you can diversify more in your portfolio, so you can weather a storm better. But also with self-directed IRAs and alternative assets, you have more control over the asset. So if you're investing, say, in an index fund or a mutual fund, there's some manager managing that. You don't even know that person. And they're making the decisions, hopefully doing a good job, but they're making the decisions that affect your portfolio. Well, if you're a do-it-yourselfer and you like to make your own decisions, I have a feeling you're that man, Craig. And so if you want to do it yourself, you know what you're doing. You understand an asset class, and that's what you want to do. So your IRA can invest in a fund. Your IRA can invest in a syndication. And then then if you're investing with somebody else's deal, then you've got more control. You can talk to that person. We probably don't pick up the phone and call the manager of your mutual fund and, pick their brain or even have access to them or even know their name for that matter.
Right. How different is a 401k? What is the difference between that and a self-directed?
I have a whole company about it. But with the 401k, I think that's it dawned on me. That's where we become investors, isn't it?
Right.
We get a job and, the company happens to have a 401k. We don't even realize, hey, I'm an investor now. I have a 401k and some of my income went into this pot of money. I'm an investor. That's how you become an investor. You just get a job doing your thing, and the company you work for offers you this opportunity. Boom, you're an investor. That's how that happens.
Yep.
So a 401k or an employer plan, we call them ERISA plans, even though ERISA covers really all retirement plans, but we call those ERISA plans. Could be a 401k, a 403b, a 457, a TSP, different names for employer accounts. Now, traditionally, those accounts have not allowed alternative assets. In fact, they just don't, for the most part. Now, you can go to the next layer to a defined benefit plan, and defined benefit plans do. That's going into another world. But here's something really interesting. We're in a new world. We've got a new president, or, 2.0,
Yep.
2.0. Well, one of the things that he's talking about is allowing alternative assets in your employer plan. Huh.
Really?
Yeah. And let's see if that happens. Wouldn't that be fun? Like syndications in your employer plan.
Yeah.
So that may happen. That is something that could be on the horizon. Early days, I think, what are we, not even a month into it by the time we're broadcasting right now.
Right.
But we'll see what happens. I mean, if you can self-direct or invest in alternative assets personally, why not with your employer account? Now, the reasoning is that, well, you're not a sophisticated investor. If you are working for a company, what you're sophisticated in is doing your job. You haven't become a sophisticated investor yet. And so alternative assets, I mean, you really do want to know what you're talking about here. You want to understand the asset class. It's not just a one size fits all. So I kind of diverted off your question. So let me know if I answered it properly.
Yeah, no. And that's why I was letting you go, because you were answering a lot of things that these are all things that I want our people to hear. So for that person that's had their job for 10, 15, 20 years, whatever it is, right? And they've got a great 401k. They've got cash stacked away in that. It's turning. It's in, in the market doing things. Can they turn a 401k into a self-directed IRA?
Absolutely. Right. You can. Now, if you still work for that employer, you may not be able to move that money. But with the 401k, you can go to your plan administrator, which isn't your HR your HR department. It's like Fidelity. It's whoever's running the plan, the company, the custodian of that plan.
Sure.
And ask, hey, can I get an in-service transfer?
Okay.
Yeah. And then if they say yes, you can move that money.
And so then, like in that situation, they reach out to you. You guys help them set up a self-directed account, and they're moving that money to you now, correct?
That's right. And they're moving it into their account. And when they do, we've got a really robust platform, and it's very easy to understand. Things are digital. We didn't start that way, but we're digital now, and I love it. It really is helpful. And then they can choose the asset classes that they wish to invest. That's why we call ourselves uDirect. We're not telling them what to invest in. The account holders choosing, like you haul.
Yeah.
They're not moving your furniture. You're hauling it. But they give you the vehicle to move, to move your furniture. Well, we give you the vehicle to move your retirement into different asset classes.
If you've got real estate inside of a self-directed, I mean, let's face it, most of everybody that's watching this is really probably focusing on this from a real estate perspective. If you've got real estate in it, whether you own it wholly or whether you have some debt service on it, what can the real estate do within that IRA, within that self-directed IRA?
Right. Real estate, I think, I know, is the foundation of almost all the assets that people invest in. There are a few exceptions like cryptocurrency or precious metals, but almost all the other assets have real estate as underlying asset, like a note. A lot of times notes are on real estate. Syndications are created so that someone can build a piece of commercial real estate, so real estate. But say if you have a house, and, what can you do to manage that? Is that what you're asking?
Well, yeah. I mean, as I'm looking through that, what are the options once that the asset is in that class and is in that account? What are the options you can do with that? I mean, can you sell? Can you hold? Can you, can you 1031 inside that? I mean, so many things I was thinking about is what can happen inside that account.
Yeah, you wouldn't 1031. 1031 is obviously refers to tax code. That's the tax code 1031, like all these numbers do. But with 1031, it's a way to avoid paying tax on the sale. Well, in a self-directed IRA, it's already in a tax protected kind of little bubble.
Right.
So you don't really 1031 with the self-directed IRA. But yeah, you can, buy, sell, you can. But what you can't do is offer services to the plan, which means you can't go swinging the hammers. You can't offer sweat equity. So if your IRA owns a house, you're not going to, replace that water heater. You're not going to do things like that. You can hire third parties to do it.
Right.
But you're not going to be doing that yourself. But there are just so many different ways to invest with real estate being the underlying asset, whether it's somebody else managing it in syndication or with you having a separate property, hiring third-party vendors, hiring maybe a property manager, but you can still screen the tenants, pick up and collect their rent checks, send it to the IRA, right? You can have other people fix things and select the tenants. You can screen the tenants, but just make sure that this is a big thing. This is like a common mistake. When you have a self-directed IRA, real estate or whatever, make sure that the proceeds go back in the IRA that owns the asset. And sometimes syndicators will write the check to you and send it to you personally. Do not cash that check. That's a prohibited transaction. Prohibited transaction blows the tax protected bubble of your IRA. So if you get a check made payable to you for an asset that your IRA owns, call them up or whatever, mail the check back, say, please recut this check, make it payable to my IRA, because you do not want to commit a prohibited transaction by, taking the proceeds from an IRA owned asset.
It was interesting. You mentioned notes. So can you do, can you use hard money out of that and invest in notes for real estate, that type of process?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's super popular to be the bank with an IRA, and people love secured loans because isn't it the best of all worlds? I mean, especially for a retirement account, it's passive. It's, of course you've got to do loan servicing, and you can hire a third-party loan servicer if you need to go collect on a loan. But your IRA is like a bank. And I think that's one of the things that really got self-directed IRAs started or rekindled in 2009. As you remember, you couldn't borrow money. If you already had X number of properties, you couldn't get a loan. And that's when savvy investors, real estate investors, realize, hey, I can borrow money from someone's IRA. And this is this big pot. Like right now, it's something like $40 trillion worth of capital. I can tap into this capital, get money for my deal, borrow money from people's IRAs, and build my commercial building. Invest in my single family home. I can get a loan, and it doesn't even have to be for real estate. It could be maybe you're starting a business, and you need to raise capital. A lot of people lost their businesses in the recession and with COVID, and you're rebuilding, and you need capital to rebuild your business. Well, hey, if somebody has an IRA or a 401k from a previous employer, boom, they could invest in your business. And so that is something you can approach people about. Hey, do you have an IRA? Do you have a 401k? If you do, you can invest in my business. You can invest in my deal. So notes and lending are a very, very powerful part of self-directed.
Okay. Well, then, that's obviously with the Norris group, we do hard money lending, right? We have trustee investors that invest in that. So that's interesting. I mean, I'm learning stuff from you as much as I hope our audience is. I'm loving that I get to pick up nuggets from you, So I know we've done some deals, and you've answered a little bit of this with the syndication aspect, but so just to clarify, someone that has self-directed accounts, they can invest in private equity or syndications of certain deals, correct? There's nothing legally that would bar them from that, correct?
That's right, because again, the ERISA laws were passed 50 years ago. It's the 50th anniversary of the IRA. Happy anniversary. But when it passed, they just said an IRA can't invest in life insurance contracts and collectibles. So all these asset classes are okay, and it's a lot of it is what a custodian will custody. For example, your IRA could invest in a racehorse because that's an investment, but it's for us, it's an asset that we choose not to custody. It doesn't mean you couldn't find someone out there, pay a different company enough money to hold that asset, or to allow that asset class.
Sure.
But anyway, as long as it's not life insurance contracts and collectibles, you can pretty much do it.
What do you see is probably the biggest mistake that investors make with their self-directed IRA?
I think the most, it has to do with acquiring property and thinking that the IRA is the down payment on the house, but thinking of it from the traditional residential real estate mindset. And I come from that mindset. Like I said, I was in mortgage a long time and residential real estate a long time. But when we personally buy a house, we have a down payment. And then we go to a bank, we get a Fannie Freddie, FHA, conventional conforming kind of a loan. But the retirement world is similar but different. So if your IRA is going to buy a single family house first, it has to be non-owner occupied. You can never occupy or have personal use of an asset that an IRA owns. So it's definitely going to be non-owner occupied first. And then your IRA is going to get a non-recourse loan, and that non-recourse loan is going to be some percentage. Now, these non-recourse lenders are going to ask for more skin in the game. Not like when we buy a house, maybe you could put 5% down. A non-recourse lender is going to want to put maybe 50% comes from the IRA, 50% comes from the loan. So that's something you want to discuss with a non-recourse lender. And by the way, I'll mention that if any of the listeners would like a list of non-recourse lenders, because it's kind of hard to find them, we've put together a list. I mean, not of people that we necessarily endorse, but just for the convenience of, of your audience. And so you can hit me up at info@udirectira.com and I'll shoot you that list.
Yeah, finding non-recourse for certain situations is not the easiest task sometimes. So, every year we've got changes or potential changes to regulation in this space. What do you see as the biggest item that you guys as a brand, as a company, are focused on right now?
Yeah. Well, we went through a lot of change since 2019 when we had the Secure Act 1.0 come out. And one of the big things that changed is the RMD age. It went from 70 and a half to 72, I think, or 71. Anyway, it changed because of the Secure Act 2.0 that was passed at the end of 2022. Now the RMD, required minimum distribution, that age is 73. So that's something that changed. There are other things that changed, but because there was so much change between Secure Act 1.0 and 2.0, Washington's going to pretty much leave the retirement account alone. Yay, for a little while. I've been in the industry for 17 years and there hasn't been a lot of change. And then, these two Secure Acts really rocked our world in creating some change because it's been so placid and unchangeable. But one of the big changes with Secure 2.0 that really impacts us is that, you'll love this, with a SEP and a simple IRA, now you can make Roth contributions to these accounts. That just, we think of a simple or SEP IRA being like a traditional IRA where you're making, pre-tax contributions. In other words, like you make a contribution to a SEP and you can take a deduction, as opposed to Roth contributions where you make a contribution, it's after tax, but then that investment or all those proceeds grow tax-free for life. So you can make a Roth contribution now to a SEP or a simple IRA. Now, I'll tell you what, the IRS hasn't been super quick on, or Department of Treasury, which, the IRS
Right.
is under, they haven't been super quick in providing us a whole lot of guidance on that, even though it's like, what, at least a solid 2 years later,
Yep.
we're still waiting on some guidance on this. But that's one of the big changes that occurred in this space.
Well, it's probably because maybe they don't have enough agents yet to be able to do all that. Is that right? I'm going to get myself in trouble here.
We talked to the Department of Treasury. I'm on the board for RITA, the Retirement Industry Trust Association. So we have an event in D.C. It's coming up here pretty quick. We go every spring. And the Department of Treasury comes to the meeting. We sit down and they talk to us on a panel. And then we ask them questions. When are we going to get more guidance on the Roth contributions to the SEPs and simples? And they're like, this isn't like it's top of mind for us. It's not necessarily top of mind for them. So we've said that's really going to move the needle for a lot of people. So we would love some guidance on this. And so that it's nice to be able to actually talk to the Department of Treasury.
Can you move money from a Roth into a self-directed?
Yeah, absolutely. So like a typical Roth that's invested in stocks, then you've got a self-directed Roth. A Roth is a Roth. The same rules about contributions, the way the money comes in, the way it goes out. But self-directed just means that it's a different asset class in the plan.
Okay.
So you can move money from a Roth IRA to a Roth self-directed IRA, just a straight transfer.
You've been doing this for a while, a day or two. What do you see as probably the most meaningful change in this industry since you began? Good or bad?
Yeah. The changes have been good because, as I mentioned earlier, the bipartisan support for retirement savings. So the changes I've seen have all supported retirement savings. So like, for example, contribution limits have increased over the years. That's positive. And as my company, one of the best things that's happened for us is going from pretty analog to digital. That's been a huge change. A few years ago, we had a giant change in our platform, making things just so much more streamlined and easy for our account holders. Just as technology develops, we've been able to grow with that and make things simpler and more efficient. And it makes the process run a lot smoother. So, like the year over year, we've doubled the number of accounts that we open, like from the previous year to the to the following year. But we haven't had to hire extra staff because of the digital nature of our system. So that's been a huge breakthrough for us as a company.
So I want to jump into something. Hopefully you won't get too uncomfortable about it, but I want to give you a little bit of chance to brag on you a little bit, right? So you just wrote and published your book. Walk me
I just have to have a copy. Let me brag about it, okay?
You just happen to have a copy there. So yeah, I saw those stacked on the bookshelves back there. How did that come about for you, and what was your passion? Because listen, that's not a quick process, and you've already got a full plate. So what was your passion that drove you to say, man, I want to write a book, but I want it to mean something other than just having my name on a paper?
Well, yes. Yeah. And I want my peers to read it and say, oh, wait, yeah, that's meaningful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it started about 10 years ago. I don't know if you know Gene Trowbridge. He is a well-known securities attorney.
Right.
And he said, hey, Kaaren, I'm writing a book. I want you to write the chapter. And hey, why don't you write a book? So Gene was super encouraging and inspirational, inspired me to start this. So there have been 4 or 5 iterations of this book. And then about 2020, BiggerPockets said, hey, we'd really like for you to write a book for us. I said, oh, that's great. So at that time, I already had a beautiful manuscript, like formatted, everything, pretty much ready to go. I mean, it still needed some tweaking, but so I gave them that manuscript. And then they looked at it for a while and then, back and forth, and it didn't happen instantaneously. And then they said, yeah, we're not going to publish this book. I go, well, that's showbiz, right? So now today is February 2025. It was September 2024 when they called me and said, hey, Kaaren, we want to do that book now. We already have your manuscript. It's ready to go. Let's go. And okay, we need it by November. So I had 2 months because a lot has happened since 2020, right?
Oh, yeah.
Secure 1.0, 2.0, and then rewrite it. Plus, we collaborated on it. So it wasn't just me writing it. It was writing it from the perspective of a real estate investor. So to totally rewrite the book, they were lovely to work with. Their editing process was genius. They would read and say, hey, why don't you write, you say this, but tell me why. Like things that I know in my head, I already know the why, but maybe I'm not thinking of the reader.
Yep.
So they would say, the reader's going to want to know why, or just elaborate on this. So the editing process was really wonderful, just working with some lovely people over there. And we got the whole thing put together. And I just thought, oh, is this really going to happen? Because, delays and things. But I mean, I'm holding this book in my hand. I can't believe it. It was a long road. Super grateful to the wonderful people at BiggerPockets who published the book.
So, all right. So BiggerPockets published. Where can we get it? How do you get this book?
Well, you can go on Amazon. Yeah. Amazon.com is where you can find it. And you can get it there. You could also get it at BiggerPockets, biggerpockets.com/SDIRA, Self-Directed IRA, SDIRA. So you could find it on the BiggerPockets website or on Amazon. And please write a review. Yay. I guess we need these reviews. It's a thing in publishing. Yep. You have to have a review.
So last thing, from a local perspective for you, I want people to hear, okay, you've got OCREIA. How do they get involved with you? How do they find you? How do they get involved and be able to learn from you on a regular basis?
Right. So being in the self-directed IRA seat and knowing so many asset sponsors, I'm able to cultivate this and bring in people who can teach others about real estate investing. I think, early on in this interview, you were asking me about how does someone start? Like, where do you even start this thing? And this is one thing about OCREIA. So it's OCREIA.com. Go to our website. We have a meeting. It's the second Thursday of every month. And we'll meet either on Zoom or in person. But, join the meeting, listen, because someone's going to be teaching you. Like when Bruce has spoken on Zoom and in person, he's going to talk about, first off, his brilliant history of real estate investing, which is so inspiring. Or maybe like someone's going to talk tonight about multifamily investing. Keystone CPA, Matt and Amanda come on. They talk about once you've invested and you've got this money, what do you do with it? How do you keep it? How do you not lose it to taxes? We'll have 1031 exchange people come in and talk about how to do the 1031, So I saw you interviewed Bill Exeter. and Exeter does a lot. So he, Bill could, talk to you about that. And so we bring different people on so you can learn all the different aspects of this giant thing called real estate investing.
I know it said, OCREIA was the last one, but it's not. I got one more to ask. So
okay,
the biggest one, how do people get in touch with you, get involved with uDirect? How do we start changing their life by getting to know you guys and learn how you can help them affect their future?
Right. Well, call us. We have a toll-free number, which I haven't memorized, but hit us up with an email. That's really the best way. info@uDirectIRA.com. And that's the best way because my whole staff gets that email and we'll be able to answer you straight away. Email your questions to us. Tell us your scenario, or just go to our website, uDirectIRA.com, hit, contact us. And then that's where our calendar is. Schedule an appointment. And then you'll have an appointment at your convenience where we'll call you and let's talk about what you want to do. Is it a prohibited transaction? How do you do it? What kind of account do you have? Can you move it? Can't you move it? And answer all your questions.
Well, Kaaren, it has been a pleasure to have you on. It's always so good to see you. Thank you for all you've done for me over the last year since I've taken over the Norris Group, you being a part of our event last year in June rather, and looking forward to do a lot more with you. Hopefully maybe I can get out and do some stuff with you and OCREIA sometime. Would love to, but it is a pleasure having you on today. Thank you for pouring your knowledge into everybody that listens to us.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks so much. Listen, everybody, thanks so much for being on today, and we will see you next time.
For more information on hard money loans, trust deed investing, and upcoming events with the Norris Group, check out thenorrisgroup.com. For more information on passive investing through the DBL Capital Real Estate Investment Fund, please visit dblcapital.com.
The Norris Group originates and services loans in California and Florida under the California DRE license 01219911, Florida Mortgage Lender license 1577, and NMLS license 1623669. For more information on hard money lending, go to thenorrisgroup.com and click the hard money tab.